starting in a second, guys. Give me a minute. ladies and gentlemen, listen, that was what was that? 20 minutes? What's good, guys? I appreciate y'all for waiting, rocking out, man. It is your boy Persona of Gaming with Persona, host of When Persona Speaks podcast, and this new When Persona interviews. I'm still working out the name. That might be the name. It might not be the name. Who knows? But you know, you guys love the interviews that I do with various people within the community. I love doing them as well, and I love talking to a bunch of different people. So, you know, we're gonna keep this going, right? So today is a special day because we got one of the infamous. I think everybody here knows who this man is. He doesn't need an introduction, but I'm wanting to give one anyway. I got BG here with me, guys. BG, please say what's up to the people and introduce yourself, man.
Yo, what's up, man? BrokenGamezHDR. Like you said, I think mostly everybody knows me. Host Weapon Wheel Podcast Sundays at 6:30. Yeah, out here playing these games. You already know.
Big facts, man. So let's jump straight into it, man. Yo, what's up, everybody in the chat too, man? Appreciate all y'all being here. So let's jump straight into it. One of the first questions I think I want to ask you is, when it comes to content creation, right? How did you get here? Like how did we get here? Like, talk us through the BG journey of getting into YouTube streaming and stuff like that.
So yeah, it just started out. That was like 12 years ago when I was in college, and you know, it was my freshman year, and I was honestly just bored and everything, right? In the dorm room, and I was like browsing through YouTube, and this was like early baby days of YouTube. I think it was only like maybe a year and a half old. So like there was no like community or no structure to it, like it is now, right? There was no structure to it, but there were a few early people playing video games and stuff like that, and you know, I was always a gamer, and I thought like, listen, I'm a gamer, and like I see some people like making live commentaries and playing all these games and stuff, and I'm like, I could definitely do that. I'm good at games. I'm better than most of the people I'm watching. So, you know, I kind of just figured out what I needed. You know, what software, what hardware, you know, the early, you know, just basic equipment. I had my laptop. I needed a mic. Back then it was like a Dazzle, which was like SD, standard definition, like 360p to record games. And yeah, that's how I got started. And at the time, it was like Uncharted 2. I made a lot of Fight Night videos. Those were the games that were out at the time. I made like Fight Night tutorials and stuff like that. And yeah, like I said, Uncharted and like whatever game that I was really into at the time. And that's how it started, man. I was just bored in my dorm room one day and thought it up.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Did anybody, like, I guess content creators or anybody kind of inspire you to is there anybody in particular that you would like say, you know, inspired you to also and pushed you to do this?
Nah, there really wasn't, because I never, like, there was nobody that I was like subscribed to. Like there's like, I know now a lot of people when they get on YouTube and like there's a lot of content creators they watched before, you know, before they got into making content. But like back then when I started, it wasn't really like that many, you know, it wasn't a thing. Nobody took it like serious, I guess, or like it would, like I said, there was no community. So I didn't really have anybody that I watched.
Okay.
It's only after I started making content, then you find people who make content similar to you. So yeah, there was really nobody. There was nobody.
Okay. Is there, I guess now, because you've been, you know, 12 years ago, that's so long ago. When it comes to now, what keeps you going? Because 12 years is a long time, and you know, I found you maybe 2014, maybe 2015, probably, and you know, I've seen the growth, you know, and you know, you definitely get your flowers because the growth is real. So what keeps you going now? Is the love for gaming, the love for content creation from back then? Does that still resonate? Is that still your driving force now, or is there more or less that keeps you going?
It's It's definitely mostly the games because I just like to play games that I like. It's the games and sharing my opinion. I can't say I'm like the biggest fan of content creation. Like most of my videos are not edited. Like I did that in the early days. That was like the standard thing to do. But now I just like even when I record, like the vlog style videos and stuff like that, those aren't edited. That's like an OBS and you can put everything in OBS so you don't have to edit it after. You could just do it right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, only videos I even edit is like reviews or impressions or stuff like that. Everything else, I don't edit because I don't like to do all that stuff because editing takes away from your time to game. Honestly, that's why I don't like it. Not because it's like a bad thing to do or a boring thing to do, but the more you're editing, the less you're gaming. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I just I like to avoid any type of process that takes me away from gaming for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say I like the content creation side of it because I'm not that like creative necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
My videos are pretty straightforward reviews,
Mm-hmm.
impressions. They're mostly just me and a camera, um, telling you my opinions on stuff, and that's really what it is. But it's really the games and just my opinions. And everybody who follows me on Twitter or watches my videos know, I got plenty of opinions to throw out there.
Oh yeah, you definitely you've been very critical about a lot of games. Some that I'm like,
Yeah.
what really, BG? Um, okay, that's what's up. That's what's up, man. I think because I think 12 years is a long time, and I think that's vet status in my opinion, right? So
Yeah.
when it comes to other people, I don't know if anybody ever asks you, or if you ever get messages or tweets where people are like, if there's somebody that want to get into content creation or get into and get to the status that you are. I don't know if you get those type of questions asked, but I like to ask these questions based on people's profession or their hobbies or whatever. So because you do stream and you do the podcast and you do, even if it is like content creation and stuff like that, and you're doing all these different things, for the listeners and the people that are listening, what is something or what are some pieces of advice that you can give the listeners in terms of them wanting to get into this realm of podcasting, building up a brand and things like that? What would you give them advice
I mean,
wise?
you just got to be authentic. You got to be, just yourself. And like some people got to understand, like sometimes just being yourself might not like gain necessarily a whole bunch of followers or this huge following.
Mm,
But it's real. The ones that do follow you, it's real, and they watch you for you and
mm,
everything like that. I've never tried to like be anything I'm not. I try to act as natural as possible, give my thoughts, and it's a lot less stress on your mind if you're not pretending to be somebody else. Like when I started making videos, I was never I never thought about a following or anything like that. That
mm.
wasn't on my mind. I just wanted to like make videos because I was bored at the time, and naturally and organically, you get followers from that. So
Yeah, yeah.
talk about the things you want to talk about. Don't talk about it because it's a trend. Don't play a game because it's a trend. Because that's something I refuse to do. I don't care how popular a game was. I wasn't going to play it because it was popular. I
Mm.
wasn't going to talk about a topic because it was popular. It had to be something I cared about or wanted to talk about. So just be yourself.
Yeah, that's yeah. I definitely agree with that 100%. I think even like with like a lot of people tend to shill for a lot of things, and me being a fan of PlayStation, I've always said that like I feel that a true fan is willing to speak on the negatives and the positives, and
Hmm.
if you only speak on the positives and ignore the negatives, you become and you're not a fan, you're an enabler. You get what I'm
Right.
saying?
Exactly.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely do think
Okay.
that if you're not like being real, you are just like shilling and telling people what they want to hear or what makes them feel good. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So I mean, to hear you be so nonchalant about the like how you kind of like got into YouTube and how it was just I was bored in my dorm room. It's crazy to see that and then see, when you started doing Weapon Wheel podcast and to see Weapon Wheel when you made it an LLC, right?
mhm.
Which was that was dope as hell to see, like just to like now this is officially a brand, right? Uh,
Yeah.
talk to us about that. Like what was the thought process about behind that? Obviously, you want Weapon Wheel is very popular podcast. Uh, is was making a brand, was that something that was just like, it just clicked, like, yeah, this is just, we got to do this, or like was there more of a strategy behind it?
I mean, it did. The idea did originate from like there was a whole bunch of Skype calls, and I think you might remember like Skype wars.
Yeah, yeah.
When everybody used Skype, nobody uses Skype anymore. Everybody's on Discord and everything like that. But yeah, early on, it would be a lot of like the early dudes in this community and Skype calls, and we would talk about topics, but it wouldn't be no structure to it. It would just be us wasting time, shooting the breeze, whatever like that. And I saw this. I saw a podcast becoming a thing. I saw it becoming a thing really early because even outside of the gaming world, podcasts took over everywhere in every category,
Yeah.
right? So I saw early on podcasts are going to be popping eventually. So so I should like put together one now, and that's pretty much what I did. I got some characters and some personalities that I thought would go
Very
well
very
together.
different personalities. I
Yeah,
will definitely say that, very different personalities.
yeah, that I thought would go well together. And as far as making it like an LLC, part of the reason for that was just for part of it was for tax reasons. You got to do it like for tax reasons, and like when you make a certain amount of money from YouTube, just to separate it from like pretty much like personal income, making it an LLC kind of helps and everything like that. And making it an LLC was just something that was officially mine. Like I don't care necessarily like do I consider Weapon Wheel podcast like this huge business that some like other LLCs are? No, it's not a huge business, but an LLC doesn't necessarily have to be like this brick and mortar thing or this e-commerce thing that it has like a whole bunch of funds coming in and out. It doesn't have to be that. Like an LLC is anything that you can make into an official stature that makes money. That's yours, and it's a business. So for that reason, I think everybody should own something outside of your personal, employment. Um, there's something you should own that's yours. That if for whatever reason your boss decided like I'm taking this job away from you or whatever happens in life, you could at least say you own something, right? And Weapon Wheel Podcast is something that I own, like the trademark, the logo. Like nobody could use that, nobody could infringe upon that. That's something like I officially own. And like ownership is important. That's a lesson I learned.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that's actually really good knowledge. I definitely think ownership is very important, especially in today's world where, we all everyone doesn't want to be under the thumb of somebody else. You want
Yeah.
to be your own boss and stuff like that. So I definitely respect that. Um, being, I think one question I want to ask too is in terms of, because you said you've been around, at least in the YouTube space for 12 years, right? What is one of the biggest changes that you've seen between then and now that you just can't stand, or that you feel is just it's kind of pushed you away to a degree, if anything?
Uh, I mean, community wise, I think the communities back then were actually way worse. I think the community
Worse?
back then, yeah, I think it was actually worse back then. Because back then, everybody there was like this fight to the top of who was like the greatest troll.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody wanted to. I say it all the time. Everybody back then wanted to be like a troll that trolled people in the comment section and got known for it and everything like that, and tried to be somebody who exposed somebody. It was like a lot of just people trying to scratch to the top and try to like access somebody they felt were inaccessible if you were a YouTuber. And that's something I felt like happened a lot back then. Like they would try to gain something off talking about you, gain something off of trolling you. And some people still do it now, but you don't see people make as much videos about it as as they did before. Like people would make videos about you. Like if you type in my name, especially back then, you would see like countless videos about me for whatever my opinions were. Now you don't see it as much. There's still those who do it, but they don't really gain anything from it. They come in and they go. So I mean, but as far as right now, I mean, not that much stuff bothers me now about this community as it did before. If anything, gaming wise, the only thing that bothers me is that that there's just less. There's been overall less games that I think I enjoy.
Do you think that's because of you think that's because of age? Is that have you always been like that? Like, what do you think that part of it comes from?
No, I think it's just the industry is just trying different things, even though it's not like good. They're just eventually like, okay, the longer the gaming goes, the more ideas you have to think of, even if they're stupid. Like, and I do believe that there are definitely stupid ideas for games, but like I said, the longer you make games, you have to come up with different concepts, even if they make no damn sense. Like, oh, it's different, it's creative. We got to try it. So like, I don't know, games like Grounded comes to my head. That's a game I wouldn't even, I wouldn't play that game when I was 18. Like if that game came out when I started YouTube when I was young and like I guess you could say I was a lot more open to games. I still wouldn't have played that game then. Yeah. So there's just a lot more risk that developers are taking now with stupid ideas for games. And so that's why I'm playing less games and I'm a lot more selective. I'm still playing a lot of games. I mean, this year has been great for me. Like, there's just some of those years where like everything to me that comes out is garbage, but this year has been great. I mean, Final Fantasy, The Last of Us, this new game, this multiplayer game, Rogue Company that I'm playing. You've been
on that heavy, bro. That Rogue Company.
Ghost of Tsushima, Ori. This game has been great, but last year, I hated almost everything that came out last year. So.
Yeah, you weren't feeling a lot last year. Last year, you were definitely more negative than positive with a lot of games. Okay, I get that. And to kind of keep on the topic of communities, right? You're real deep in the social media streets, right? You see a lot of the bullshit that goes on. You see a lot of the bullshit that goes around and things like that. In terms of the gaming community, right? I answer this question. Do you consider yourself a part of the gaming community in its current state, or do you just consider yourself someone that is a gamer, but then also because you're a gamer, they consider you a part of the community by association?
No, I would consider myself part of this community. I mean, it is what it is. You know, I associate with everybody around here. There's a certain amount of like viewers that we exchange. So yeah, I consider myself part of this community. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Okay. Now, in terms of the gaming community in its current state, how do you feel about how the community is? Because, and I'll give an example. Like for me, when I look at the community now, when I see, how people don't want to buy games and how, you got people reviewing games through streams and, all these crazy things that's happening within the community, a lot of fraudulent things, right? What is your thoughts on how things are moving right now within the gaming community?
I mean, there's always been frauds. There's always been stupidity, silly things being done. It's not the worst it's ever been. I mean, there's been a lot of crazy things that I've forgotten that's happened. Like
what?
People, just random stuff that comes to my head. Like I forgot who it is that went to like a GameStop parking lot and was asking people why you bought that console. You should
Uh,
get another console, something like that. I forgot who that was.
what?
Uh, I mean, it was that. It was a lot of crazy stuff people have done in the name of fanboyism. I've forgotten a lot of it. I mean, but like um, people literally like losing their minds over console wars and stuff like that. And, it's been a lot of wild stuff, especially back in the day.
Mm,
So like right, that's why I be telling people right now, the stuff that happens right now doesn't compare to stuff that happened back then. It's
I
it's a
mean,
lot more tame now. It's a lot more tame.
would would you put that whole Last of Us debacle situation up there though? That I
Oh,
think
as
that was
far
a
as like
perfect
community
example of
reaction.
like,
Oh, I mean that's been one. That's definitely been one of the worst. Um, that was one of the worst situations in reaction or retaliation to a developer. Usually, like it's a lot of like personal stuff between gamers, but like usually there's not like a whole bunch of I guess personal wars between the gamers and developers. So yeah, that situation is definitely unique,
mm,
and that just shows a lot of people that a lot of people. I think a lot of people are just slow and weird and take take gaming a little bit too hard.
mm, mm,
They're taking it way too hard. Like it's entertainment at the end of the day, and none of these characters are real. They're not related to you. They're not your daddy. They're not your papa.
mm,
Like
mm,
so, I don't. That situation was just very weird and dumb to me. How people reacted.
mm. And to kind of stay on the topic of fanboys, right? Because I do think that certain people in the community that do have a preference, like I first off, do you think there's anything wrong with having a preference?
No, not at all. Everybody has a preference.
Of course. Now, I do think that there are people that take this console war, debating, whatever. I do think there are people that take it too far, right? But in terms of the ones that kind of keep it in within the realm of gaming, like my motto, the way I look at it is, as long as it stays within gaming, I think it's cool. But when it comes to the personal attacks and all that crazy stuff, I definitely think we're past gaming at this point, and we need to bring it back. So I do agree there. In terms of current gen, because one thing that I can appreciate about you is that you're, even though, so you own all the consoles, or do you got a Switch, right? A Switch, PlayStation, a PC, and an Xbox.
Yeah.
You got Xbox, right?
No, I
Or
don't
no?
got
Oh,
Xbox.
no
I
Xbox.
don't think
Okay. Well, you got a PC, so you got an Xbox 2.0. Anyway,
yeah, pretty much.
in terms of this gen, gaming wise, you're very vocal about the things you don't like, right? But in terms of this gen, was this a good generation for all three?
Uh,
Or and
not for
if it wasn't a good generation, okay. So, matter of fact, let me rephrase the question. In terms of this generation, which consoles you think offered the best experiences for the gamers?
it was definitely Nintendo and PlayStation. Even though I'm not like a fan of a lot of the Nintendo type games and their IPs,
Mm,
there's a lot more games that were from the Nintendo platform that I would probably enjoy or had like better quality than anything on Xbox. Like, and we already seen what PlayStation did, just quality games year after year, critically acclaimed, user acclaimed, sold millions because everybody loved it so much. It was just like this level of quality that both the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4 had.
mm,
And not that there's not like Xbox games I didn't like. I mean, I really like Gears 5. I love Gears Tactics. I have like over 100 hours in Gears Tactics.
mm,
Um, Ori and the Will of the Wisp. That game's amazing. So they have these really good games here and there, but it's never consistent. It's always like good game. The next three or four are trash. Good game. The next four or five are trash. So they're just like not very consistent. Is their
yeah,
problem?
yeah. No, yeah, I agree. To kind of stay on the topic of that with this gen, right? So we saw that, we see that PlayStation and Nintendo are delivering, right? When we look at with Xbox and Microsoft, we know that they aren't delivering at the rate that we think that they should, right? To look at, to kind of play into the whole what's going on right now. What's the top of the leaderboards with Xbox? I'm sure you watched the Xbox showcase, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, okay. Um, Halo. Let's just stick to Halo right now. Just Halo. Because you do a lot of PC gaming. You game at the highest settings, the highest frames, all this other stuff, right? Even as a PC game, did the gameplay of Halo stand out to you as a PC player in any capacity?
Not at all. I mean, that game didn't stand out on in any way you measure it. I mean, it didn't visually, it didn't look good.
Mm,
Um, there are games that came out many years ago that looked better than that game. Gameplay wise, it didn't seem to be it didn't perform very impressive. Like when you, how do I put this? Everything like gameplay wise that you interacted with seemed static. Even the grappling hook uh, seemed very poorly designed. Like when you especially when you've seen like grappling hooks be used in other games,
mm,
and like seeing enemies react to it. Like if like I don't really think any of those enemies like really reacted in a physics manner properly to being hit with a grappling hook. It just looked like very lazy and didn't have like a lot of polish to it.
mm,
The only thing I would say is the guns look the gun how the guns perform seemed pretty cool,
mm,
but even shooting the enemies, it didn't really seem like they were reacting that much. It didn't really seem like you were doing anything to them, and that's something that's very important to me in shooters is games that make the shooting feel satisfying. That you don't games that don't make you feel like you're just shooting like just at a pixel, or it makes you feel like you're shooting at just like a cardboard cutout. You know what I'm saying? Like
So
it's
you
not
like more
just
realistic shooters. So like you like Battlefield, SOCOM, stuff like that.
shooters that give you some type of feedback. Like when that bullet hits that target,
Mm-hmm,
there's some type of feedback that you get.
mm-hmm.
And I don't think, in my personal opinion, I don't think Halo has really been the best at that. But I mean, at this point, that's something that they should definitely improve on. But yeah, overall, for their most important game, which is Halo, their most important franchise, that's not a good showing. I don't know how anybody could think that was a good showing for your most important game.
Well, do you think that Aaron Greenberg's blaming the pandemic for this? Do you think that's a valid excuse?
No, nah, because this game has been in development for a long time. What I blame is it's been in development hell because we know like the director months ago, I forgot when it was, the director of the game didn't like they leave or something like that in the middle of
Mm,
development.
yeah, yeah.
There's been rumors like, they just there's been a lot of development hell. So no, like this pandemic has been going on since about really since like March. Maybe you could say February, but it's really been March,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So I don't if you've been working on it years before this and it's coming out this year. That's the thing. If this was coming out maybe next year, I could understand. But this is coming out in a few months. So I don't think the what 4 months of I guess working at home should produce this mediocre looking game. That's no. I don't believe that at all. And they said the build was like 6 months to a year old.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you showing us 6 month to a year old build for a game that comes out in a few months?
Exactly. Do you
No,
think
none of that makes sense.
I have to ask this? Do you think that Game Pass is could be to blame for why we're getting such lackluster content from Microsoft?
I think Microsoft is using Game Pass as a crutch.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they feel it's a safety net because I honestly do think they look at it as if this game turns out to be trash, well, at least we have Game Pass. At least we can put it on Game Pass, and the game will be okay because people will play it anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like they have something to fall back on. They don't have to like create their studios don't have to create amazing games to convince people to buy it because it's gonna be a Game Pass, so people are gonna play it anyway.
They already got your
Right?
money.
Yeah, they already got your money, and for that low of a price, people are gonna play the game anyway. So you don't really have to make your game look amazing as possible uh, to convince people to play it anymore because it's in Game Pass. Bro, like even if you're not the biggest Halo fan, even if you think Halo looks like trash, and if you're a Game Pass and if you have Game Pass, you're gonna play it. So you don't have to go out and put out the best showing. They could just be lax and like, it's Game Pass as a service is gonna get 15 million or whatever odd subscribers that they claim. Yeah, it's a crutch.
Well, I think I agree with you 100% that the drive, I think the drive for developers to, I mean, let's just look at the Hellblade and Everwild, right? Everwild doesn't know what game it wants to be, and Hellblade 2 went on stage and was talking about a new documentary about our travels to Iceland. What is going on here? Like, what are we doing here on a game showcase? You're talking about documentaries and all this other stuff. I mean, that's a problem, right? In Halo's case, there really is no room for excuses because this is your flagship title, and you said yourself this was developed for within the Series X environment. So what we're seeing and what you're telling us are two different things, right? To kind of stay within this realm, seeing the Game Pass showing, I know you said that I watched the video. You said it was trash, which I think we all agree that that it wasn't up to snuff, right? When you look at next gen right now, in this current state right now where we are, what is your confidence level between Microsoft and PlayStation? Where is your confidence levels, and where do you think Microsoft or PlayStation need to improve going into next gen to make things better?
Yeah, my biggest criticism of PlayStation has always been the lack of multiplayer games, um, a first party, and they made a bid to try to get Splash Damage and the Leyu company studios because they're real good at making multiplayer games. But Tencent outbid them, so that's that was over and done with. Um, but yeah, like I'm a multiplayer guy. I love multiplayer, and they haven't really been because it's like, why are we paying for game for PS Plus, which is to play online, when we don't get online games from you, right? And some people will say like, oh, but there's multi-plats that you can play online. Yeah, but if you're charging me for, because those multi-plats are not charging me for online. Sony's charging me for online because those multi-plats are on PC and I can play them online for free. So if you're going to charge me for online to play on your platform, you have to give me games made by you that I use your platform for. You get what I'm saying? So that's my biggest criticism about them. They need some more multiplayer games.
Now, let me to stay on that topic, right? I see. I know that I'm a big multiplayer guy too. I love multiplayer games, shooters, all that other stuff, right? Would you be willing to accept a game that has a weak story or a weak single player but a strong multiplayer? Like, so if the single player has to suffer for the multiplayer to be great, are you okay with that sacrifice?
Would I trade a good story for a great multiplayer?
So,
Yes.
so for an example, Last of Us 2. We know Last of Us 2 is a great game. It's critically acclaimed. It's slated to win. I'm pretty sure it's going to win a lot of awards. A lot of people love it, right? If the story and gameplay, or the story and world and the story and all that stuff was smaller, and it had the multiplayer when the game launched, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like I wouldn't trade.
Even knowing how the story of Last of Us is now, if that was cut up, you would be okay with that as long as the multiplayer is there.
If you took a little bit away from The Last of Us, I mean, I think that game could be 2 hours shorter anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I would trade a a great story for a great multiplayer. At least, like, maybe not in every game, but there's a few games I would do it in.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't trade a great multiplayer for like bad gameplay. I wouldn't like, because story to me is not the most important thing. Gameplay is always and always will be the most important thing in my opinion.
Because
I
of
can, I
immersion.
can I, yeah, I can beat a game that has great gameplay, right? I can beat a game that has a bad story. I can't beat a game that has bad gameplay. Because if we're being honest, you could ignore a game with a bad story. You could
Mm-hmm.
skip the cutscenes. Some games don't allow you to skip cutscenes. But let's be real, you could skip the cutscenes,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't skip gameplay. That's something you can't avoid. You can avoid a story in a game. You can't avoid gameplay. That's literally what you're doing every time you pick up the controller.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you story is like second, sometimes third most
Mm.
important thing to me.
Oh, wow.
Gameplay is
What
always
would be
more
second
important.
then? If gameplay or mechanics is first, what would be second? Multiplayer?
In some cases, I put graphics above story.
Really?
There's- yeah,
Please
there's some cases.
explain.
There's definitely some cases like for example, even like Killzone. Even though I would like Killzone Shadowfall, even though the Killzone Shadowfall story was trash,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They really they started going downhill after two's story. Two story was good. Three was like and then four was like I don't even know what y'all are telling here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the gameplay was still good to me. The visuals were very enjoyable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a situation like that, I don't, I'm not really bothered that the story was bad.
Mm-hmm.
If the gameplay was good, I'm not bothered by it that much.
Okay.
Like because the other hand is mediocre, is a mediocre looking game
Mm-hmm.
and a great story. Once again, you have to look at those visuals. You can't pretend visuals aren't there.
No, I agree.
You can't you have to look at at every second you're playing this game is like, man, these visuals are bad. You
Mm-hmm.
can't ignore it. Story is the only thing that you can technically ignore in a game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I put it third sometimes.
Well, it's interesting you put it in that perspective because I definitely, in some aspects, a bad a game could be good. A game could be carried off how good the multiplayer is as opposed to the story. Because if it's a bad story, and it's a single player only game, it's just bad all around. But if the single player is bad but the multiplayer is good, sometimes the multiplayer will outshine. Perfect example, GTA 5. You know, GTA 5 when it came out on PS3, that was supposed to have story, DLC, and all this other stuff, but the online just warped the single player, and they just was like, look, this is what we're gonna do. And then case in point with mechanics, and this is something that you and I definitely can agree 100% on. Red Dead Redemption 2. It was a chore to finish that game because
Yep.
the shooting mechanics, the movement, it just was not good, right? And to see a lot of people praise this game, but then it has such bad gameplay mechanics, just threw me off. So I think we can kind of meet down the middle of the road with that. But continue with next gen and in terms of the two consoles, what you want to see.
Yeah, so with Xbox, I mean, they just got to make better games. Just better quality games, and I need them to like be a little bit less, I guess, less experimental and stop with these side projects and these passion projects and all that stuff.
They're
It's
not passion projects. That's the thing. It doesn't come off as such.
like whatever it is, and I'm not like, I don't feel that way only towards Xbox. PlayStation has some like side projects that I think are trash and a waste of time,
Mm.
like Media Molecules games like Dreams and I was it Opulus made Concrete Genie and stuff like that. I'm like, these artsy type games, I don't really care for them.
Mm.
I want games, not a game that that allows you to create games and stuff like that. Something for me to actually play.
You want something
Um,
already created.
yeah, don't give me the tools to make a game. That's what your job is.
Yeah.
So I just, with Xbox, I just need them to make, some games that people actually want to play. And when I say people, like every game is not for everybody, obviously, but they be making games that's like for almost nobody,
Hmm.
like so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can agree there to a degree. In terms of, I guess, and this might be, I don't know, you can answer it. In terms of where you find your most enjoyment, right? PC, PS4, Xbox, well, PC, PS4, Switch. Where do you find your most enjoyment gaming, and why?
I would definitely say PC. Just because like PC is just the most ideal place. It's just the optimal place to just enjoy a game. I mean, like even though, like for example, I'm still playing through Ghost of Tsushima.
Hmm.
There are situations with Ghost that just are like very hard to like accept, like the 30 frames.
But you gotta
I,
admit the game's beautiful though, BG. The game
no,
doesn't look good.
the game's beautiful, but gameplay wise, 30 frames is 30 frames is really bad. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, 30 frames, I can't play a game at 30 frames, but 30 frames is really bad. I'm playing I'm playing like Rogue Company, right?
Hmm.
I'm playing this game at 120 frames. I put this get like if I put this game down to 60 frames even,
I
it looks like a
seen that.
slideshow.
You were saying that like you can't even do 60 anymore. And I'm like, yo,
The
bro, we can't, what? You can't do 60?
Rogue, yeah, man, Rogue, and sometimes like on PC, um, 60 looks bad on PC sometimes, right? On console, 60 looks just for whatever reason doesn't look as bad, but like 60 frames is still like is not even that great to me anymore. I remember there was a point where if we got 60 frames, I was like big, right?
Hmm.
But 60 frames to me looks like a slideshow, and I
That's
can tell
crazy.
I can tell the difference. I had Rogue running at 60 frames, and I'm like, man, this looks so choppy. And then I put it back up to 120, and it's like you played. It's not only how it looks smoother. It literally improves you as a player and as a gamer. So, like for example, if I could play Ghost of Tsushima at like 120 frames, that would immensely change the game because when it comes to the Ghost is a very reactionary type game. The
Hmm.
parries, making precise movements and everything like that.
Hmm.
And if you're playing at 30 frames and you're trying to react to movement, you have a lot less frames to actually see movement. In
Hmm.
120 frames, you see like 3-4 times as much movement. So it's literally the difference between a slideshow and actually seeing somebody every motion. You can see every motion,
Hmm.
and that makes it that makes the difference.
So,
Like it's huge.
I'm guessing you're one of those guys that you feel every game going into next gen has to be 60. If not, then it's just unplayable or unacceptable.
I think it's I don't expect it, but would I rather that at least? Yeah,
Or
but
the
I definitely
option.
don't
Are you
expect
are you open? So like, because my ideology is that we say that we want developers to have freedom to create games, right? But then we put a mandate on certain creative aspects like the frames. So instead of putting that mandate, I'm saying let the choice be there, right? We're going into next gen. Obviously, the technology is much better than what we already have with these current consoles. Now, might not be better than a PC, but it's a lot better. Um, the option for 60 frames. So if a game doesn't have the ray tracing and do you follow all that stuff? The ray tracing, the velocity architecture, VRS, RDNA. Does any of that within these consoles do anything for you as a PC gamer? Does seeing the SSD and all this, does any of that does that do
yeah,
anything for you?
I follow all of it. Like I understand all of it, but it's to me, I don't put like an emphasis on it
Mm.
because because it's all like subjective to what a developer wants to do. You know what I'm saying? Like that was my issue with the with the Xbox and the conversation and the fans and everything like that. They talked up everything you named, RDNA, the architecture, all these features that the Xbox Series X will have. But then we got a game that looks like Halo Infinite. So it's like I don't necessarily care about the features. I care about the end result. So what does like all that stuff mean if the end result doesn't use it or doesn't take advantage of it? Like so yeah, that stuff like people talk about that stuff till they're blue in the face. But
Then we get
what
shows
did
like the
it do?
Xbox Showcase.
Yeah, what did it do for you?
Yeah.
You talked about all this stuff. Like there's literally a laundry list of all these features that the Xbox Series X has. And not to say that they won't take advantage of it eventually, but you talked about it for a year, and then the biggest game you got that should take advantage of all that stuff, the game looks like crap. So that's
And
why I don't
the
get
patched in
involved.
ray tracing at like a later date. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, so that's why I like to be knowledgeable and know what all this stuff is. But I don't go down the rabbit hole trying to be a tech expert in all this stuff. I don't go to know for what.
Yeah.
Like I think if you're gaming, if you're gaming as much as you should be, that stuff it doesn't
It doesn't
you're
matter.
not trying to be an expert in it.
Yeah, yeah, I get you on that. Um, a lot of people, a lot of people in the chat are mad at that 30 frames per second comment. To kind of play around in that area. In terms of 30 versus 60, right? Uh, and obviously if there is no change in your mind, and that's not what I'm trying to do here, because 60 frames, I do think in terms of multiplayer games 60 frames should be a thing. I think in terms of single player games, I think that's where it's optional, in my opinion. That's how I feel. But the 120 frames comment, that's what's kind of like I'm still stuck on, because like when I see games at 60, and I guess that's because like I'm not a PC gamer, I play mostly on consoles or whatever, so that's probably why. And I'm pretty sure you're playing at every game because you got 1080. I mean, you got a 2080 Ti and all that stuff, right? So you souped up. So playing in 120 and then going back to 60, you playing at double when you're playing at 120. So I get that. But to kind of, if we going into next gen, right, and we're still seeing 30 frames per second on next gen games, right, without the option to choose, is that going to be a deal breaker for you in terms of playing games on next gen consoles?
No, like I said, I've never been one of these dudes that be like, oh, a 30 frames game, I'm not playing it. I will never say that, right? I'm definitely playing games that are if I like the game, I'm definitely going to play it at 30 if I have no other option. But am I also acknowledging that 30 frames makes games worse? It definitely doesn't make them better. Yeah, and especially in Ghost of Tsushima's case, it's definitely making the game worse as much as I'm enjoying that game. Because, like, literally, the difference between a second difference can mean like you getting hit in that game. It's very fine, like milliseconds of differences, and like how many hertz you're playing at and the frames can make a difference of how smooth your gameplay is. So like I said, it's not make or break, but everything is definitely better at the higher frame rates. And 60 is just 60 should be the 60 should be
Standard.
the basement. Yeah, that should be the lowest. That should be the basement.
So you think 60? So you think frames should be higher frames should be put above higher frame rates and textures and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you
So
have
like
to
so
sacrifice,
so to put the question into perspective, how would you rank? So we're talking frames, we're talking resolutions, we're talking textures, all these different things. Where would all of these things in a game fall within your list of what's most important to what's least important?
so it depends on it does depend on the game. Like Ghost, absolutely frame rate is the most important in that. I would, I would be fine with sacrificing a little bit of visuals in that game for Ghost, because Ghost is an action game that you have to react. If it's a game where you have to react very quickly, like on the dime, like milliseconds of to get a parry, something like that, frame rate is absolutely the most important in that situation. In another game, like God of War had the option. I played God of War. I wouldn't be mad at nobody playing God of War at the resolution mode, which was like at 30, which like locked it to 30. I wouldn't be mad at nobody for that.
The performance mode was pretty good though. I
Yeah,
actually noticed the difference in the performance
yeah,
mode.
it was close. It wasn't locked to 60, but it was close to 60. But you didn't need that pinpoint. I mean, I played on the hardest difficulty, so I definitely had to play on the performance mode. But typically you didn't need that quick reaction time like you needed in a game like Ghost. It wasn't as important. It was important, but not as important. So it does depend on the game. If it's one of those games where you need to use like snap aim, quick aim, yeah, absolutely, you need a higher frame rate than behind that. I would say between textures and resolution. Maybe in some situations I would put textures because there are textures. There are games that have high resolutions, but the textures are not good. So even at 4K, the textures are still going to look bad.
Yeah.
So in some situations, I'll probably put textures and then resolution.
Okay. That's fair. I think in terms of the frame argument, I agree. I agree to a degree with that. Yeah. To kind of stick with gaming, what are your thoughts on old games? Right? Do you feel that how important? Matter of fact, okay. How important is backwards compatibility to you? How important is that?
It's not important at all to me.
So,
Because
go ahead, Marcel.
it's not important at all to me. I mean, I almost never go back and play games from a previous generation. I've never really wanted to. I'm okay with playing a remaster, but I've never wanted to play the original version of an old game. Like maybe there's like one exception. Like okay, I'll say Resident Evil 4 is an exception because I do love that game. I've beaten that game like on every platform. But typically, there's no other game like Resident Evil 4 for me. So I've never played the original version of a game or went back. See, and that's the thing. I may play Resident Evil 4 if it comes to a newer platform, but I've never wanted to go back or use backwards compatibility or something like that. It's not that important to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I'd rather a remaster.
Do you think it's as important as a lot of people in the community are making it out to be?
No, it's not, because I mean, like, look, I care so little about it. Like when I had the PS3, a lot of people remember the fat OG PS3. There was a backwards compatible one, and it was backwards compatible, and I used the feature once just to try it out. I didn't even want to play anything. I just used it once to try it out to see, just because it's a feature. I tried it out, never used it again.
Yeah, it's funny. I can't recall using, because I had the OG fat with the backwards compatibility too, and I don't think I did, because I still had my PS2, and I really just wanted to play the PS3 games. Like I really wanted to play that stuff. So I get that. So going into next gen, if PlayStation was to say, hey, look, PS4, yeah, but outside of that, no, would that affect your purchase at all when it comes to purchasing either console? Or not even purchasing either. Would that affect your purchase of PlayStation at all?
No, because I buy the next PlayStation console for the new games, not the old ones. And no, majority of people don't care about backwards compatibility.
Of course.
If they did, because we know like Xbox is doing a better job as far as like backwards compatibility, right? If backwards compatibility was that important to people, the next Xbox will outsell the PlayStation 5. and we know that's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
if it
yeah.
was that important to y'all would be going to buy Xboxes. But we know they're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you care about it, but you don't care about it that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think I've always said that, like, in terms of going into next gen, PlayStation 4, I think is definitely, it has to be there just because they're so close in architecture and, you know, all that different stuff in the library. But PS3, PS2, PS1, I don't care. And realistically speaking, I'm buying a PS5 for next gen games. So I don't care about any of this stuff. Like, none of this is a selling factor to me. So I definitely get it.
Yeah.
Um, I remember one time I seen you tweet that you don't you love PlayStation, but you don't associate with PlayStation fans because they're weirdos, right? Some fans because they're too radical, right? Would you say that you belong to any? Would you put yourself in any of these groups of, like, someone that's a fan, like, or has a preferred platform or preferred whatever? Like, I don't want to say a fanboy because not necessarily a fanboy, but would you even put yourself in any of these groups? I'm talking PC Master Race, PlayStation fans, Xbox, whatever. Would you even put yourself in any of these categories?
I don't feel like I truly fit. I mean, if I had to choose one, would it probably be a PlayStation fan? Yeah, but I don't feel like my beliefs line up with what like the typical PlayStation fan, um, believes like and what they want,
Can you give us some
what they
Can you give us some examples? 'Cause I'm curious. So,
like
like, give us like
PlayStation.
some contrast in terms of, like,
Yeah, like
PlayStation fans.
PlayStation fans, a lot of them act like they don't care about multiplayer games, and that's the biggest thing I don't like.
Yeah,
They act
yeah.
like they don't. They act like multiplayer games are like a bane on like the industry. They're this terrible thing. They're like a poison.
Mm-hmm.
Like anytime like anytime a first party developer even mentions like co-op, multiplayer, anything outside of a single player experience, PlayStation gamers act like somebody just spit in their mouth, like just slap their grandmother. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't understand why y'all are so mad at like extra modes. It's extra modes that these developers are talking about, and PlayStation fans, like, they literally lose their minds and like just like have a conniption and have a fit
Mm-hmm.
because they want to provide you with something more than just a typical single player and new game plus. And anything outside of that is just pure evil to them. No multiplayer, no co-op. Don't add any other mode. That's evil, and that's how they look at it. And that's why I don't associate. That's why I say I don't associate that with them in that way,
Mm-hmm.
because that gets on my nerves because I love multiplayer games and I see a lot of these games have potential for multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's why I don't.
I
And
think
like I
what,
said, I play most of my games on PC. Like
yeah,
95% of my games I play on PC.
yeah.
It's only PlayStation exclusives that I play on PlayStation, and
Mm-hmm.
not even all of them. So
I think in terms of, like, the multiplayer, like, 'cause, again, I love multiplayer too. Favorite multiplayer, Uncharted 2, SOCOM, Call of Duty, those things. Destiny. I love multiplayer. Um, to kind of play devil's advocate, I think when it comes to a lot of PlayStation fans, um, the quality of games that PlayStation are putting out right now, with, like, these great stories, these really beautiful worlds, and all these different things, I think a lot of people feel that if the developers also have to worry about multiplayer, it takes away from the creative process of single player, which then may damage, how good the game may be for a lot of people. Because, as much as you and I may love multiplayer, a lot of people suck at they suck at multiplayer, and
yep.
and I think that's why a lot of people stay within that single player realm. And with PlayStation being so pivotal within that genre, to see multiplayer anything, and I don't want to say everything, but to see any type of multiplayer be added on or be created in relation to a game, they feel like that single player experience may be attacked. how do you respond to something like that?
I simply say you can't say that PlayStation first party studios, because all of them say that these
Mm,
are the best studios in the world.
mm-hmm,
Uh, you know, they're amazing, they're great, they're talented, they have untapped resources, manpower and all that. Like they praise PlayStation Studios to the heavens.
mm-hmm,
So you can't praise them to the heavens and then when it comes to them doing something, suddenly you have doubt. You have like this fear, like, oh, they can't do this, they can't do it. You just literally told me they're the best developers in
mm-hmm,
the industry, the best collection of developers. So you suddenly can't turn around and be like, uh, oh, they can't handle making a single player and multiplayer. Like, why not? Why not?
mm-hmm,
Guerrilla Games went from making all they've made is first person shooters in their whole catalog. And then they made an open world RPG game.
mm-hmm.
Do you know how like polar opposite that is?
Yeah, yeah.
Like uh Sucker Punch went from making an open world game about people with superpowers to a Japanese open world samurai game. So
Mm-hmm,
you mean they can do those polar opposites? They can do. They're talented enough to do those polar opposites, but they can't make a single player game with multiplayer. One is way farther. They've done greater feats, and
mm-hmm,
and all of these studios have worked on multiplayer in some form or fashion at one point. So
mm-hmm.
you can't tell me that they can do all these amazing feats but can't make a multiplayer portion to a game. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, you can't. It doesn't make sense.
I think my I think in a I think for me, and this is just me looking at the game industry as a whole. When it comes to multiplayer games, there are so many out there now that I personally, I mean, and again, if Sony wants to do this, if they want to put out more multiplayer games, I definitely welcome it. Sony does have a decent amount of multiplayer games. They've been putting out from PS2 all the way up to now, but I think in a world where there's so many multiplayer based games, I think I think Sony may be looking at it like we're gonna tap the market that's not getting enough love, or where we feel we thrive the most at. Because as much as you and I may say, oh, I want to see more multiplayer games from Sony. A lot of people don't play these games, or they'll drop them. We know how quick people drop multiplayer games when they're not winning enough, or they suck, or the game's not great, or whatever the case may be. That might be part of what their optics of what they're looking at in terms of uh, their game creation. You get what I mean? I'm pretty sure we're gonna see The Last of Us 2 multiplayer. Probably not this gen, maybe next gen. I'm pretty sure that's gonna be there. And Uncharted 4 multiplayer is great. How many people are still playing that now though?
I mean, the thing is, like, for a while, you could still get an instant. You could like with Uncharted 4 and Last of Us, you can get into a game instantly. There are games on Xbox which are more, I guess, multiplayer oriented.
Mm,
You had to wait in a lobby for a while.
mm.
You turn on Last of Us right now. You'll get in the game in 1 second.
Yeah, the
You'll get
search is still pretty fast. I'll admit that.
Yeah, you get. I've never had to wait. I don't think I've ever had to. No matter I, and this game is like 7 years old,
Yeah.
right? I don't think I've ever had to wait more than 30 seconds for a game in The Last of Us,
Hmm.
because there are people who want that multiplayer.
Yeah.
So I just like and like I don't really think people can make the case like, oh, some people aren't going to play it or it's going to die off,
Mm.
because it's the same thing with single player games. I mean,
True.
yeah, like I don't think there's that many people. I'm not convinced there are that many people probably playing Dreams anymore.
Mm.
I mean, whatchamacallit, Death Stranding, they barely made a profit from that game.
Yeah, that
That, that
game.
they said that game broke even. And if a game breaks even, that means you didn't really make any money from it.
Yeah.
You've never heard Sony say, "Oh, a game broke even,"
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
unless something went wrong.
yeah.
When a game sells for PlayStation, they sell this they says this game sold 2.5, 3, 4, 5, 6 million. They never say, "Oh, well, the game broke even." That's terrible. You know something went wrong. So they take risk on that. They can take a risk on some multiplayer.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. To kind of stay in the realm of gaming, uh, what are your most anticipated games going into next gen?
Next gen. I mean that we know of that exist.
Yeah, that exists. That exists. And even if
Def-
you want to throw in some hopefuls for a new game, you could do that too.
Definitely Horizon. I mean, the Horizon to me was I say it was the best new IP this whole generation. I love Horizon Zero Dawn. That's best new IP this generation. I stand on that.
Hmm.
Um, it would probably be my game of the generation. It'll probably be second or third, possibly behind God of War and Final Fantasy VII Remake. But it's like in my like top three probably. So
Okay.
I'm definitely looking forward to um, that sequel. Of course, Miles Morales. I mean, the Demon Souls. You know,
Mm.
Ratchet and Clank. From others too. I mean, I'm looking forward to a Battlefield where they're Battlefield 5.
Mm.
Well, Battlefield 5 is already. I'll be losing track. We're up to Battlefield
6, I think.
6.
Yeah,
Yeah, my
six,
bad.
six.
Sometimes I forget about 5 because I think Battlefield 1 was better than 5.
Mm.
But yeah, Battlefield 6 where they actually return to modern times.
Mm.
I would enjoy that.
Mm.
Uh,
I, I have to ask. As critical as we all have been on Halo, when it comes out, are you still going to get in and play it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that's a day one.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I mean, even if it's just to, because I always say you can judge a game based on what you see, like just based on like an eye test. It's an eye
Mm.
test.
Mm.
Based on what you see, you can say, oh, Halo Infinite looks like trash, right? It looks like trash. We can
Mm.
visibly see that with our eyes, but I can't say it is trash necessarily
Mm.
because I haven't played it.
Yeah.
If I played it and it's bad, then I can say it is trash. But I got to play it, So and if a game shows me that it at least has something I may enjoy or be interested in, then I'm gonna buy it and then I'm gonna judge it.
Okay. Okay. Any other games?
I mean, I would like to see Resident Evil return back to third person. I mean, that would be nice. Because
I agree.
Village looks cool, but I'm not really necessarily thrilled about it. I don't think 7 was that amazing. They captured the atmosphere in 7, but not really. I don't think the gameplay was that great.
Mm.
I mean, the next part of Final Fantasy, um,
Oh, Final Fantasy 7 Part 2.
yeah, the next part of that,
Somebody asked, no bug snacks.
nah, I'm gonna have to pass on Bug Snacks. Yeah.
Okay. That's a solid list, man. That's a solid list. Um, yeah, I think that's it, man. Really good conversation, really dope convo today, man. I really do appreciate you coming through too, man. I know you got a lot you doing. Um, but yeah, go ahead and let the people know where they can find you, and your social media handle and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. It's Broken Games HDR underscore on Twitter. That's Broken Games with a Z, HDR underscore on Twitter. Weapon Wheel Podcast on Sundays live 6:30 EST on my channel Broken Games HDR. So yeah, that's where y'all can find me. And yeah, check out all my content. Check out my live streams. Check out all that.
Definitely.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. You can find all the links to BG's stuff, his Twitter, his YouTube, his Twitch are in the description. Definitely check him out, man. Podcast is really great, really dope. Um, it's very entertaining, trust me. Especially this past week's episode, very entertaining. But yeah, with that being said, guys, we're gonna get up out of here. I appreciate you guys coming through. Please be safe. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. Next week, I'm gonna have Kofi on the show for an interview. That's gonna be really great. And yeah, guys, What's Up PlayStation, check that out. Or the links to the What's Up PlayStation handle and stuff is in the description as well. And yeah, guys, I appreciate y'all. Please be safe.